How am I coming in?
Yeah, it looks
all right,
good, dude.
Low and sultry.
Yeah, kind of like me, I guess.
Right.
For real.
Welcome back to the Briones Pickleball Podcast, everyone. Today, I have a very, very special guest, and kind of like a colleague here.
I think so.
Yeah, a coach and a pro player, and also pickleball sports analyst now.
I'll take it. Like the intro.
Yeah, Kyle McKenzie. Let's give it up for Kyle.
All right. What's going on, everybody?
Yeah. So, Kyle, this is actually our first time meeting.
I know. Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy. Now, how long have you been in the game? Because I've been in about 8 years now.
I think I'm closer to 7. I think like 6.5,
okay.
7 years. I think around 2016, I want to say, is when I maybe first started playing. Maybe my first tournament was in that range.
Okay. So yeah, me and Kyle, obviously, we do instructional videos. We coach full time, but like first time meeting, it's pretty crazy. And yeah, man, it's good to have you on.
Well, yeah, I think like so many people in the pickleball world, like we know of a lot of people before we actually meet. Yeah. I've been a fan of your stuff for a long time. It's weird that we never played back in the day when both of us were doing a lot more tournaments, but yeah, we might have to get on the court after this.
Yeah, man. So one thing I do want to say, like for real, Kyle, is there's not many coaches out there that I would like say, hey, this is a guy that I think all his stuff is really, really good. You should listen to him, but you're one of them.
Well, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you. Right back at you. And I've actually said that. We've actually had a few people that we've each given privates to among the hundreds, but I've heard on more than one occasion that we had a similar vibe or similar communication style on the court. So
yeah, man. I think both of us are kind of we are not super crazy animated like a Tyson or something like that.
Right.
But we're, I don't know. I think I have really fun when I coach and stuff, but I'm not like super like out there,
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like I'm naturally relatively reserved. I mean, I'm more shy than I think a lot of people realize, but just through teaching, especially with me doing a lot more big groups and camps, I've realized there's a need to like bring a certain level of energy in addition to the the feedback and the content being good. So I think in private lessons, I'm much more subdued. I'm much more analytical, really trying to treat it kind of like an art because it's always a different puzzle that you're solving in front of you. But when I teach bigger groups, it's a little bit of a part that you play in a way that you have to be that heartbeat and that consistent energy for the group because it's not just about learning. It's also about fun too. So I try to lean on that a little bit more in those instances.
Yeah, man, that's super awesome. Like I said, I really look up to you as a coach. I think everything that you have to say is really, really good. Obviously, you're on Team Tyson, and we'll talk about that in a second. But why don't? Because I honestly, we haven't had many conversations. This is our first time meeting. Like, can you tell the viewers and me about kind of your background? Obviously, there's some tennis there, but your background, just really quick. And how you came into the game of pickleball and coaching.
Yeah, it's nothing that I planned, to be totally honest with you. And then, yes, I played college tennis, but I had a very ugly. I did.
Okay.
I mean, but I had a very ugly tennis game. I was just the kid that played every sport growing up. Loved sports. It was my passion. But I tried tennis on my small high school team at the age of 16, a sophomore in high school, and there were no like country clubs around. So I mostly learned. I had a good high school tennis coach, but that's not the same as private lesson instruction at all.
Yes.
And so a lot of my learning was just trial and error, hitting against a wall. Nice. I got better and better, but I really liked the strategy and the individuality of tennis. That's why I think I chose to concentrate on it because team sports were great, but I wasn't the coach. So I was running the play of the coach. And I always liked, I think the analytical and cerebral side of sports. That was my real passion. Cool. And tennis gave me the ability to like choose my own game plan. So even as my game was ugly, like I prided myself on saying, well, this person's better than me, but I'm going to find like where they're weak and like I'm going to find that weakness and still find a way to win. And so, yeah, I ended up walking on. I played a year at Skagit Valley Junior College. Okay. My coach was like, yeah, you're not going to go beyond junior college tennis. Like you just don't have enough tools. I kind of used that as fuel and I walked on for University of Idaho the next year and made the team. So I only played the 1 year. realized that like, okay, I wasn't a scholarship player. I might need to go find something, more permanent with my life. I'm not gonna be a pro tennis player. So I only played the 1 year, but I actually got into playing poker professionally after that.
Okay.
And so I really credit kind of not having a lot of tennis lessons and not really teaching much tennis myself almost as a good thing for pickleball, because I had enough tennis exposure to understand basic fundamentals. But I think you can attest to this. Like, the book wasn't really written and still fully hasn't been written with pickleball as far as technique and strategy. And so it's been so much fun to kind of be one of the pioneers in figuring this stuff out. And I've just been a sponge. And, I think the reason I have a decent amount of knowledge now is I've asked a lot of really good questions to people that have been in the game longer or who do something better than me, and just always trying to grow my knowledge base. And it's been a fun journey.
No, that's really, really cool, dude. Real quick, the poker thing, I think I did hear, like, you and Adam Stone probably have
we've had a few discussions.
Okay. So just really quick, we don't have to spend a lot of time there, but like, so professionally, as in, did you do it as a career?
Yeah, I did in my early 20s. So I lived in Vegas for a while.
Wow.
I mostly played, probably my most predictable income was when I played online. I never played like super high stakes.
Okay.
I never played super high stakes. I played very medium stakes, but online I felt like gave me an edge because I didn't have to play for a ton of money, but I could play like 7 or 8 games at a time. And so you figure you can make, $5 an hour, whatever, at one table. You start to multiply that out, and then you can actually have more of a predictable income with it.
So is that, so why did you stop?
Well, honestly, it wasn't, I think I got too obsessed, to be totally honest with you. At the time I was waking up, every morning I'd enter all these tournaments, because that's what I would do. And I'd play till midnight, and I'd wake up the next day and I'd do it over and over again. Dang. And after doing that for like a year and a half, you burn out, quite honestly. And you realize, okay, well, if I don't kind of venture out and do something else with my life, this will be the only thing I will be able to do with my life. Wow. And, I wasn't dating. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. So went a different route, I think, just for overall health, in general. So I still play on occasion, but I'm glad I don't have to rely on that day in and day out, because it can be a grind after a while.
Gosh, man. Okay. So that's when you were single. I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
And, and we'll get the family life later on. But that, like, how much can you make? Like, how much did you make doing the poker thing?
Yeah, it wasn't anything crazy, because again, I wasn't trying. I think for me is the misconception that a lot of people get when they ask me about that, like, oh, you just love to gamble. Not really. I like having an edge. I like thinking my way into an advantage, whether that's chess, Monopoly, or poker. And so, I wasn't making a ton. I was making, an above average wage for a single person. But I wasn't chasing millions of dollars. Right. I was chasing just like more a regular predictable income at the stakes that I was playing. Okay,
cool. Any parallels or anything that from poker that really helped, because you got fairly good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything that you could use from there, or that's transitioned to your pickleball game or coaching?
Yeah, big time. I think that it's really important with poker to first you kind of learn the fundamentals. You learn what they would call basic strategy. You understand, okay, you're going to fold more hands than you're going to play. You're looking at, things like position, all these things that, the first you're not aware of. You study a little bit more and you kind of understand basic strategy. But when you go and you play at a table, especially if you're playing live and in person, you understand that that's your starting point. But now you're paying attention to everybody around you and looking for patterns, looking for tendencies.
Wow.
And then you just basically deviate a little bit from that basic strategy in different ways, depending on the person that's in front of you. And, I really look at, I've brought this up a few times.
Yeah.
In addition to strategy, poker has something that I call emotional control, meaning you could have 9, geniuses at the table, but if one of them gets a little bit frustrated, that's not their intellect that's going to take over with their decision making. It's going to be their emotions.
Wow.
And I think that you see that in like tournament pickleball, especially doubles, right? When you think about you're in a long grinding dink exchange, sometimes the reason a person speeds up isn't because it's the right play, but it's because their emotions take over, right?
Wow.
They get emotional in that moment and they try to do more than they need to do because maybe they're frustrated. Maybe they've been losing hand battles. Maybe they've missed a couple of dinks. So it's just that idea that yes, there's the strategy of what you should do, and that's the mental part, but there's also the emotional part of kind of being competitive, staying in that journey, if you will, and saying, okay, I need to just wait for the moment. That's a lot like folding in poker, which seems easy, but when you're playing for 10 hours, 12 hours, and you get eager to play, sometimes you start making poor decisions that are wrong, not because of mental, more of that emotional.
Interesting. Dude, I'll tell you what, that's really cool, because you're talking to a guy that knows nothing about poker.
Okay.
Gotcha. So just to see though, I mean, I think I know what folding is.
Sure.
I know like super basic stuff,
yeah. Gotcha.
But like, it's good to hear. I mean, those parallels are pretty crazy, actually.
I think so. And, and there already was quite a bit of poker players that were former tennis players or tennis players that are now poker players. So I think there's something about
is that tennis sports. Or is that other sports too? You just noticed that there?
Definitely other sports, but I've seen a lot of tennis specifically because again, it's the one-on-one. I think that's what's unique about one-on-one sports is again, if we're talking about basketball, football, even like soccer or something like that, I imagine that the strategy you're using as a team comes from the coach. But with tennis, I mean, a lot of that is coming from you, as well as, I'm sure other individual sports like boxing or whatever as well. But I noticed there were a lot of pro poker players that played high level tennis. And then there were a lot of, retired tennis pros that have definitely dabbled in poker and found that world attractive.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. All right. So quickly, like back, how'd you get into pickleball and then actually just coaching your first lesson? Because I actually remember mine.
Okay.
But what's your quick story?
Yeah. So my grew up in a small town, Sequim, Washington, and my high school tennis coach and I, once I started getting better at tennis, we were kind of the best players in our small town. So through my early 20s, we developed a friendship and we played a lot and we're very competitive in singles with one another. I moved away, got married, did the whole wife kids thing, moved all over, and I moved back and I actually reached out to him to play tennis. And he was like, no, I've honestly, I've retired from tennis. I didn't have really anybody to play with.
Yeah.
I've found pickleball. I already knew what it was and I'd already played it in school.
Okay.
But, I'd never really seen it played the right way or at a high level. So
where you grew up, you did play it in school.
We played it in middle school along with badminton. So we spent maybe like a couple weeks on pickleball and then badminton and then just kind of cycled through the racket sports.
You are aware like 48 other states have no idea. Did not play pickleball at all, right?
Well, yeah. In Washington, I mean, it was invented an hour away from where I grew up. Okay. I don't know how much that factored in, but we definitely did play it in like 8th grade. I remember that. Okay. So I'd played it before. Knew it was kind of fun, but had no concept of strategy or anything like that.
Now, let me ask you this. It was wooden paddles?
Yep, I believe so. Yeah.
Do you remember anything? Was the kitchen line even regulate? You know what I mean? It was
I didn't measure it, but I mean, I do remember there was something about not being able to get right on top of the net.
So the rules and everything, the PE teacher or whatever, they knew what he was talking about?
I am pretty sure as far as the rules, and I think we all had a good time with it. I mean, nobody's dinking or dropping, right? So everybody's just smacking the ball back. If you have good enough eye-hand coordination, I think people realize, get to the kitchen and use your volleys, especially with the indoor squishy ball. It was tough to get through that wall there.
Yeah.
But no, I remember enjoying it. I just also enjoyed badminton too, so it didn't really stand out.
Yeah.
But when I concentrated on it, when I had a chance to play, his name's Doug Hastings. He's a good senior pro player now. I just kind of copied what he did. I didn't really understand the strategy of dinking, but I noticed that's what everyone else was doing. It kind of seemed normal. All right, keep it low, keep it unattackable, and I really fell in love with it though when I played my first tournament. I entered the 5-0s. And at that time, I thought that speeding up off the bounce was really you could do it, but I thought it was just really low percentage or just a stupid thing to do. And I got hit in the chest a couple times off of, some good disguised speed ups.
Wow.
And it really opened up my eyes to, okay, there's a lot more levels to this game than just waiting for the mistake and going from there.
Dude, I'm telling you, the more I talk to you, there's so many similarities between our story.
I think we haven't even gotten into the family thing.
Not even that. A
lot of parallels.
We're gonna get there, but so thing that you said in the beginning, didn't think coaching would be a thing. So my tennis story, I started tennis a little later too.
Yep.
Around 16 to 18.
Okay,
but just to just to start playing. I actually started because my wife, we have a family now, but she played college tennis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So really good. I started to play kind of because of her. So anyways, but my dad, took me out when I was young. But yeah, so there's that. and then just not knowing, so I didn't have much coaching experience. I did teach a couple of camps with a friend,
Okay.
for kids though, like three,
Right.
like
So it's just more just keep it fun, basics.
And then just background in coaching, like people ask me all the time. It's like I haven't coached anything else. So it's just been a ride. It's been a ride, and I'm sure like you're looking back now, and then the whole pickleball thing. It's just totally taken over.
Yeah, it's never a position I thought I would be in.
Yeah.
Feeling very blessed, grateful, and it's the funny thing about me with the coaching thing is. To answer your question, I don't remember my very first lesson. I think I was doing that in
Was it a private? Do you know?
It was a private.
Okay.
Yeah, it was somebody who had reached out to me, because I was one of the best players in our small town for just, a couple little pickleball lessons they probably weren't great. But what really got me into coaching was when I moved to Spokane. My wife had been playing for a little bit, and she'd played tennis, but more at like a JV level. So it wasn't anything, amazing on the tennis court, but she's a good athlete. And, she wasn't really super concentrating on pickleball. She played a little, but when she would go with me to like open play, I would play more the higher level.
Yeah.
But even on the lower courts, some of the guys in the area were rolling their eyes that she was on the court with them, and just kind of making her not feel totally welcome. To be totally honest with you, which does happen.
Yeah,
it does happen from time to time. So she's very competitive. She really wanted to get better, so she was kind of my first main like coaching product. I said, okay. We'll like teach you how to get a lot better. We'll kind of build your game around your strengths. It was very much experimental at the time because I wasn't doing a ton of teaching, but she got better like pretty quick. And she started getting a lot better than some of the guys that were once, 6 months ago, rolling their eyes that they had to share the court with her.
Got it.
So I actually started having a lot of the high 4.0s, 4.5 players reach out to me for lessons. And then I got more into it from there.
Yeah, really, really cool. So 2 things. My wife played JV tennis.
Okay.
Not Division 1.
All right,
Kind
gotcha.
of like yours.
Yeah.
And then, my first tournament, just like you, I remember entering 5.0. Like
Just went right for it. Yep.
Yeah. And so it was me and my dad, my dad and I, we started playing together, and we started training. And, at that time, 2014, 2015, like even today, you would say the same thing, but you turn on those pickleball, like, the championship matches.
Oh yeah.
And you see, those guys are like really easy, or
it looks a lot slower than what it really is. Yeah,
and of course the game has evolved now, but even then those guys had good hands. They can place the ball well. So anyways, one of my first matches, I'm pretty sure it was my very first match, was against Steve Wong.
Okay, nice.
So I
know Steve Wong. Yeah.
So like we got beat pretty bad, but we got some points there. But again, that kind of showed the level, and being a fairly good tennis player, but just a difference. And then I know what I needed to work on.
Right.
Then, but that was interesting what you said about speed up. So you started 2 years later than me.
Yeah.
Back then, like 2014, 2015, man, the off the bounce speed up game was not. It was like, not that it wasn't existent, but I didn't see it that much.
It was pretty rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I wasn't saying that, that people did it all the time or over and over again. I guess it was clear to me when I was playing, with our local group, they were okay players, but, I don't know what the overall level was. Hastings was a 5.0, but I was new, so I wasn't quite that level. And then other people are probably more in the 4.0 range. Okay. And we're playing indoors, the ball was sitting pretty low. And yeah, I didn't really see the value in spin. I didn't realize how much spin you still could impart on the ball and just allow you to be more aggressive from lower positions. So when I saw other people do it, it was pretty clear to me early on. I knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't hitting the ball at full pace.
Yeah.
They were disguising it, making it look like a dink. And when you're on the other side of it and you see yourself getting surprised, it makes you start to wonder, maybe I should be looking to add this into my own game a little bit too.
As a coach, being a coach in a long time, there's just so much to talk about here. But just for the listeners out there, we coach full time now.
Yeah.
So a lot of them they're all trying to get better, but they either are searching for a coach or something like that. What do you think are some just really good qualities of a coach? And every coach that I have on the podcast, I'll have multiple, but I like to ask that question. Like
some really good qualities in a coach.
Yeah. Like if they're looking for somebody to get coached by, like what should they look for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think, the downside of just looking for certifications is I think that it can sometimes be a little bit too easy to get certified. And, the fear is, well, how much of it is just, a money grab of wanting to have that power of being the main certification and to get people paying their dues. So I would look for somebody who has well-rounded tournament experience, somebody who's played somewhat at a competitive level. You don't have to have the best player in town. But I think it's important from a relatability standpoint, if you're really wanting to get better at the game, to go with somebody who plays at a certain minimum level and who's played in a competitive environment. I think beyond that, look for someone who's going to give the effort. I think preparation is important. When I met with a lot of my private lessons early on, I didn't just say, well, what do you want to work on? Right. I had a general idea of what I wanted to take them through, but I would listen to them. I would ask questions about their goals, short term and long term. So I think somebody who's willing to have some back and forth with you, ask good questions, and then be able to take the lead when they need to, because as a student, you don't know what you don't know. So if you go to an instructor, and I know way too many of them that do this, they do zero preparation, zero mental or physical preparation before a lesson. They show up and they say, okay, Kathy, what do you feel like working on today? And, a lot of times she's there because she wants you to tell her, right? And so I think I would say a back and forth. And then it's tough for people to know this, but I think one of the worst qualities in a coach, or maybe more what shows a coach only at level 1 would be they only know how to teach what their own style is. They only know how to say, listen, I'm a better player than you are. This is what I do. This is what you need to do. I think that most coaches start out that way. I think my first few lessons, I was that way. But when you really understand the game of grips, styles, understand there's way more than one way to be effective at the game. What I do now is I really get a sense of where someone's at, get a sense of their grips, their strengths, their weaknesses, and then make suggestions about where their game can go. And it might be a totally different path on where my game's going, right? It's always easier when there's relatability, but sometimes there's not. So if you can understand what other good players do and different approaches to the game, you can kind of try to mirror that for different students.
Yeah, no, that's really good. One of my, not like kind of like a pet peeve, but I tell players, if you're looking for a coach, one of the things that you don't really want to hear is that, when someone's teaching you something, there's only one way to do it.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You know what I mean? Because there's, again, like the game's still evolving. There's a whole bunch of different things, but like even, myself and both of us as good coaches, we study the game. We study so many different players, and there's so many different shots and different things. But yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Top 3, let's get your advice, not advice, but let's get your answer on this. Top 3 worst coaching advice. What have you heard or seen taught over the years? Because, when I ask myself that question, I have a few that, that I can think of off the top of my head. Like it could be a technique thing, it could be a strategy thing, but we hear these things all the time.
Okay, let's think. Never leave the kitchen line, right? You never step back off the kitchen line. Once you get there, stay there. I think that'd be number 1. That's becoming more old school, but for a while it was kind of mainstream when I first got into the game.
So real quick, let's break it, because this is an educational YouTube channel. Let's break that down. So what are some reasons then you would step off the line?
Yeah, absolutely. The way I teach it now, because if you look at the modern game, court positioning changes back and forth because it's often changing which team's on offense and which team's on defense. So this is not a one size fits all, but it's a good guideline. If you are established and the point is neutral and you're at the kitchen line, if your team is hitting aggressive dinks, you're the one dictating, you're the one moving the other team around. Not only at times should you be at the kitchen, but you should be leaning in, looking for the pop-up. But if you feel as though the other team's aggressive and their ability to attack you is there, they have that in their arsenal, and you're playing passive, defensive dinks. Sometimes that's your only option, but that's where you should consider changing your court positioning, and taking just one big step off the line can heavily affect your ability to handle attacks and help your reaction time. So if you hit aggressive dinks, stay on the line, lean in, If you hit passive dinks, be willing to sag off the line temporarily and expose your feet a little bit more, but give yourself some more reaction time.
Yeah, and that thing could happen in a split second.
You should always be looking for that. And it's not just you hitting the ball. Sometimes it's your partner's dink, right?
Yes.
Even if they pop the ball up a little. And when I say pop up, I don't necessarily mean a ball they're going to tack off or out of the air, but sometimes it's even just a dink that's going to bounce and sit up. Depending on the level, that's a ball that's very attackable for certain opponents. And if hand spin isn't your main thing, if you're not a Rob Cassidy where you're just like, all right, bring it on, sometimes buying yourself a little bit of time and taking a step back is the way to go.
Yeah. Okay. So you don't. So number one, don't just have your feet glued and cemented at the non-volley zone line.
So next one, I mean, kind of talking about that kitchen line or strategy too, would be, you hit your third shot drop and you sprint. Right? Yeah. You attempt your drop and then you just hurry to that kitchen line and just make it a race. Yeah. The term that I use now when I teach is the first thing you do or should do right after you hit a drop is assess. Yep. You need to assess, the quality of the shot. If it's good or if you feel like it's good, absolutely try to gain some real estate forward. But I think we're seeing when we watch the pro level, a lot of times it takes several shots, even for these pros, to fully get to the kitchen line and get the point to neutral. So I think just more of a patient approach of getting there, or a willingness to be a patient, is probably the better way to do it.
Okay, really good. So don't sprint after your third. Assess, really important. All right, last one.
This is maybe more of just a tendency that I see that I would say I fixate on a lot to not necessarily do is always just the drive and crash, where you drive and then you immediately sprint in. You've got your endorphins going, you're excited, you're like, all right, I'm going to win this point, and just driving from behind the baseline and sprinting in right after that drive so often makes your next shot much, much tougher. Yes. So paying attention to your own court positioning when you're driving. If you're driving from like mid-court or closer, then maybe you can drive and crash and look for the volley right away. But if you're near the baseline, I'm a big fan of just driving, immediately stopping or coming to a split step, and then just kind of choosing what the next volley is, or the quality of the volley, to determine what your next shot is. But often just dropping the next one and using that drive as a setup to an easier drop.
No, yeah. Really, really good. Really good stuff. I agree with all those. Those are great.
Thank you.
All right. So like I said, we have a lot of players trying to improve on this show, that watch the show. Yeah. What's like one or two main things? Now this is obviously, we can go through like every level. We don't have time for that, but just what is just one takeaway or one thing that someone can do if they really want to improve?
I would say classify your errors differently. Really understand that, I teach like a visual analogy when I'm teaching camps of, start at the kitchen and I'll say, okay, picture that you're dinking and picture, your general margin of error from there. Yeah. If you pop it up really high, sure, you have a chance at maybe getting it back, but right at the kitchen, you're probably going to lose that point, especially if you pop it up pretty high. Yeah. But I'll take, one step back and one step back and one step back and say, what you want to picture in your mind's eye is every step back that you take from that kitchen line, you want to picture your own mental target expanding. Because if you do make an error, you're every step further back that you're in a better defensive position. So just really hammering home the point that all errors are not created equal, and that an error in the net ends the point. But missing high, especially if you're in mid-court or if you're a little further back, can still extend points. You can still clean up your mess time and time again. And so just classifying some errors as just part of the process, and other errors really teaching yourself to really hate some a lot more than others, specifically in the net, or in certain situations, missing wide as well is just as bad as in the net. So I think that just classifying your errors differently and really looking at high-level play and thinking, okay, everybody misses their shot. But if you watch the pros, they don't miss in the net very often, right? It's usually more of a pop-up that went a little bit too far and then someone was able to initiate. But specifically, net errors are kept to a minimum. Yeah.
On that, I talk about the same stuff in my intensives and in clinics and stuff like that. But that's really interesting about the net. Yeah, you don't see them miss into the net a lot, but what I always tell players is you really don't see them miss wide a lot. Almost never.
And people don't talk enough about that, I think, because especially when players are coming from tennis or they love singles, they're in that shot making mode, right? Where they want to hit this beautiful angle and this amazing ball striking. But pros are all about percentages. It's long-term math.
Yeah.
You're trying to give yourself margin for error so often, because if you don't, you just don't put enough balls in play to be competitive at that level.
Yeah, man, really good. Here's a question. So when I first started, we both entered 5-0, and
right.
Did you get beat pretty bad when you, or was it?
I mean, it was the Coeur d'Alene Classics. There were some decent teams. We actually went 2-2.
Oh,
so it wasn't really that bad. But you have to understand, like, I'd been playing for 4 or 5 months against another 5-0 player. So I felt like I was pretty close to his level before I jumped in. I didn't know what that level looked like with 4 5-0s on the court, but I didn't just jump in, 1 month into playing and figured I'd kick everybody's butt. I put in a little bit of work prior to that to feel like, okay, I kind of could gauge what the level might look like. But I was still a little surprised.
Okay. Got it. But when I first started, we had a good understanding, my dad and I, of the game and things like that. One of the things, and here's my question of, what is maybe one big thing that you've changed in your game over the years? Because for me, when I first started playing 5-0 tournaments, even after that one, I started getting better and better, seeing really good results and winning some. One of the things, my mindset back then used to be, I'm just going to dink until... I'm just going to dink forever, because I was in great shape. I can just sit there for like a million dinks. But over time, obviously, that actually took me quite far.
Sure.
But, now, even as I coach and teach today, like, that's totally changed. But like, that for me, that was one of the things that I totally changed my philosophy on, just by seeing the game, and also in my game, how I can improve it. But what is like 1 or 2 things that you really shifted your mindset on? It could be, how you coach differently, or just something in your game.
Yeah, I would say probably a couple things. I would say similar to you, realizing it's not just about who's going to make the error first, but point construction. And I think that you have to have a lot of tools in place to really be at that level where you're starting to really think about point construction fully. I think when you have gaping holes, it's tough to fully construct points because you're trying to hide that weakness to some degree. But that's the direction the game's going. It's not just, 30 dinks cross court where the other 2 players are just waiting to get in there, right? Thankfully for TV purposes, a little more flashy than that. Yeah. And then again, kind of back to the drive. I've always had a natural, pretty good forehand. I think that's why I was better in singles than I was in doubles for the longest time. But understanding that when I'm driving in doubles, it's a setup shot. That I'm not trying to win with the drive. Yes. I'm just trying to put pressure on the volley and anticipate my next move depending on different factors. But that was a big thing for me, because I was playing singles and driving every ball. And then I would play doubles and drop every ball, because I didn't know how to use the drive in doubles. When I started thinking one step ahead and understanding scenarios, now I feel much more confident using both.
Now, everyone, if you don't know Kyle McKenzie, he's just a really, really good coach. And a lot of people know you from Tyson's videos or in Tyson's camps. So why don't you tell me a little bit like how you guys got involved like together, and like kind of your role there? Like what are you currently doing? Yeah.
So I met Tyson, it was probably 4 or 5 years ish ago now. I moved to Spokane for just a job relocation, and I'd played 1 or 2 tournaments that were pretty small, but I was kind of stalking all the best players in the country, especially for singles, because my buddy was a good singles player. He's a senior pro now, but he'd beaten a couple of decent names, and I was starting to beat him on a regular basis. So I wanted to know how good I was. So I was watching some of the better players. When I knew I was moving to Spokane, Tyson was the teaching pro at the club that was 5-6 minutes from my house. So after a couple of months being there, I was able to get him on the court finally. And, he beat me, but it wasn't so bad to where it wouldn't be worth his time. And then the second day, it was kind of funny. So I don't know, we lost 11-5, 11-5, something like that, day one. Day two, I almost beat him. It was like, we were playing indoors. And again, I told you my best shot was my forehand. So if the forehand got hot, I could reel off 5-6 points in a row. So it was like 11-7 in the third or something. He got me. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, this is great. Decent on day one, almost got him on day two. I think Tyson was number 2 in the world maybe at the time. And so I'm thinking, all right, day 3, we'll get out there again. Maybe this is my day. And I'll never forget it, because he absolutely mopped the floor with me. It was totally
the third day?
Oh, third day. Yeah. Poked the bear situation, and, asking him afterwards, he told me he was so mad at himself, that I pushed him as much as I did, and I'm just a total nobody.
Yeah.
So he was just prepared, just found every one of my weaknesses. I was just watching the ball go by. But I think I was really hungry to play.
Yeah.
He knew that. So I was a decent training partner for him for a while.
Oh, okay.
And then as we got to know each other as friends, I think he realized like my passion for analytics. I got the opportunity to help him with a camp for Level Up way back in the day. Got it. I didn't know how it would go either, but I was more comfortable even than I expected with big groups because I'd been in sales, so I knew how to public speak. And
what did you do?
I was in sales for a number of years after, kind of between playing poker for a living and pickleball. So several different sales jobs, ran some sales teams, and so just knew how to speak to larger groups if I had to. So I felt relatively comfortable in that. Started teaching with Tyson a lot more. And then when he broke off from Level Up, I kind of had the choice of sticking around and actually taking a pretty big role with them, but ended up joining Tyson. Glad I did, just because we had the autonomy, the ability to kind of write our own curriculum, which given the trend of the game and where it was going was something I think that was really important for us to be able to teach more that modern game style.
So your role with Tyson now is what? So you're everywhere.
Yeah. So I would say camps. Over the last couple years, maybe 40% of the camps I would lead, and Tyson would lead maybe 60%. Yeah. Starting kind of this last 6 months or so.
It's like 80 or 90, right?
Yeah, I'm going to probably do 80 to 90%. Yeah. Tyson's not going to be leading as many with the amount of travel and really his moment of capitalizing on, his results as a player. I think it was important for him to just focus on training 100% and just putting the results in. So it's a role I was already doing. I'm just doing it at a bigger rate now. Yeah. And, I love teaching camps, whether I'm the assistant or the lead. I don't really care about pride. I honestly enjoy, passing down knowledge and just, just figuring each person out in front of you. It's always a new puzzle. There's always a different way to explain things. And I enjoy the challenge.
That's cool, man. How is it working with Tyson? That's one question. And two is like, what is one thing that you can say about him that people maybe wouldn't know?
That people wouldn't know. Honestly, I think Tyson's kind of a wear his heart on his sleeve type guy. Like he really is the same guy that you see, in interviews, being very, very entertaining, very charismatic. That's the same guy when he leads camps. It's the same guy when you go hang out and go out for a drink or go to dinner. So, I think his biggest asset is that he has let the world kind of into his personality and that he is very authentic. So I think what you see is what you get, to be honest. And that's cool. As far as how is it working with Tyson, I've kind of going back to that idea of energy or bringing energy into camps. That's not naturally who I am, but I had the good fortune of just assisting Tyson for a lot of camps. And I realized keeping it light, like keeping it fun, in addition to the content being good, but being high energy really just changes people's day and they learn better in that environment as well. So I've had to bring that or make a conscious effort now when I teach camps to bring a little bit of that, even though it's not naturally who I am, but I feel like it's needed for those bigger groups.
And it's not like you're doing something that you're not being fake or something.
No,
for me, same thing. Cause we're pretty similar, but just more of a positive energy or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's being somebody that you're not. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to push my own comfort zone, right? To make sure that it's as good of an experience as possible, right? So I'll never try to be Tyson. Like that level of charisma, it's just not naturally who I am. And I think that's why him and I have always been a good team, because we respect each other and what we bring to the table. We see a lot of things similarly, but we're also very different people too. And he's not going to try to be me or vice versa. And so I think there's just a lot of mutual respect there. But as a team, I think we bring different skills to the table that we're better unified than on our own.
Cool, man. No, really good. Quick question now. Now that I think of it, so Caden Niemoff, you know him. He's working with us now. Oh yeah. So we're doing some stuff together. He's on the podcast, coaching and stuff. Is there, I'm not talking about conflict or anything like that, but like, what is one or like maybe one thing you could think of that you guys coach differently? Like a little bit, because like for us, we basic knowledge of the game, understanding, even strategy, we're all like the same. But I can think of maybe one thing that we kind of go back and forth, that we would teach differently. Is there anything between you guys?
I would say Tyson probably puts a slightly higher premium on technique than I do.
Okay.
But I've learned a lot about higher end technique from him. I would say when I came into coaching, I was really good with strategy. I think maybe my best skill is taking something that's somewhat complex and be able to break that down to a simpler level. But I didn't have as vast of a knowledge on technique when I started. So a mixture of just teaching a lot of camps and learning from Tyson, I think I gained a lot of that. I would say he's better at, maybe because of that technique, he might train like pros better than I would. But I think that I possibly have more relatability at every level because, again, my path of starting with coaching my wife when she was more of a 3-0. So while I was thinking about, well, how do I go from, a 5-0 to a really good pro? I think you can get kind of lost in just that one-sided way of looking at things. So seeing her go from a 3-0, 3-5, okay, well, what does she need to do to go from a 3-5 to a 4-0, 4-0 to 4-5? Seeing her progression or kind of helping her through that. Cool, while at the same time, I was worried about all that nuanced stuff for the path to pro. It gave me what I feel like now is relatability when I'm teaching, because when I'm teaching, we're not mostly teaching pros. We're mostly teaching 3-5s, 4-0s. And so to understand what each level is being held back by or what they need to know, I think that's one of my biggest strengths. Yeah,
cool, man. So like you just said, 3-5, 4-0s, obviously 3-0 to 4-0 is the bulk, right? Both of us are who we're teaching.
Sure.
What are like top 2 things that you think that those players they should work on?
What, even that, I would, I would call it a loaded question.
It is. It is a loaded
because
question.
it totally depends. I mean, let's say they're a 3-5 that played tennis for 15 years.
Okay.
So they're probably not going to need weapon development, the ground stroke, or there's
Let's take away, so non-tennis, because a lot of them are, so no racket sports, because this is a big one. Yeah. So you're right. So let's narrow it down. No racket sport experience.
I would say it's going to be that weapon development, and that's the longest stage to really get better. Probably more ground strokes, probably more like fourth shots, like the ability to keep opponents back or make them work to get forward is sometimes the missing category on somebody that I would say is more that pickleball purist, right? They started pickleball. They didn't have a lot of other racket sports, but they drill 3-4 days a week. They're great at the kitchen line. They've got great third shot drops, but just that idea of being a little more aggressive at times and making your opponents work to bring the point to neutral is usually what I see at that level that they're lacking if they didn't have a racket sport background.
Okay, cool, man. That's really good. How many camps are you doing, by the way? Like this year?
It's pretty close to 30. Yeah, it'll be in the 30 range.
30, so 52 weeks in a year. So that's a busy schedule, man.
Well, and I kind of knew what I was signing up for. Yeah. It's been busier than expected with commentating because I didn't see that coming. And, we were going to be teaching, 22 or so of those camps right after PPA tournaments. So I wasn't going to play all the tournaments. I was just maybe going to play a handful, but then show up for the Monday, Tuesday after and teach the camp. Well, now that I'm commentating, I'm showing up basically, the Wednesday, just like I'd be playing. Plus I'm sticking around for the Monday and Tuesday and teaching. So every time I teach a camp and commentate, it's a full week away now. So definitely on the road more than the wife and kids would like these days.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 4.
Okay.
4 little kiddos.
Dude, I just remember because I was asking about you. Because I think you've played some tournaments, Caden.
Yeah. Caden and I love playing with Caden. We've always done decently well, just we get along real well.
Okay. Yeah. So I was talking to him, and dude, I did not know because I've just from the very little things I've seen you on the Tyson's podcast,
sure,
things like that. I never even knew that you even were married. And stuff.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah. So we have 3.
Okay. Okay. What are the ages of yours?
6, 4, and 3.
Okay, so yours are a little younger than mine. Mine are all 11 through 7.
11 through 7.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're traveling all over the place. So how is that with the family life, and how do you balance that? Because I know that can get really tough at times.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Well, I mean, still learning because I mean, last month and this month. Was on the road for 3 weeks out of the month. And when we kind of signed up for this life, we figured it would be close to half on the road. Maybe we thought maybe a little bit less, but with the opportunity to commentate, it's not something I want to turn down, at all in the short term. So, I'm having to probably disappoint some friends of mine, back home that are wanting private lessons. I'm hitting a point where I'm just not really going to do any teaching at home because that family time when I am home is so valuable. And, you don't get those years back. And my kids are at a critical age where they need that attention. And it, I don't want it to be a complex for them. So I think going forward, just being very rigid that when I am home, clear my schedule as much as possible and just try to be as involved with them as I can. And it's not something I'm planning on doing, this schedule for 10 years. I'm thinking a couple of years. And then from there, kind of just assess where things are at and make the choice about schedule wise, at that point.
No, that's really cool. Do they ever travel with you?
Yeah, they do. But okay. I mean, they're in public school this year, which we're honestly, we're considering homeschool just for the purpose of, them being able to come with me a little bit more.
We homeschool our kids.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Do it,
I might have to ask you some questions after this and how that goes, but we're definitely considering it. In the summer, they'll come with me as much as we can make it work, but tougher to do, during the school year. Okay,
cool, man. How can you share your most memorable coaching experience? I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of stories. It could be coaching high level players. I don't know if you do that or what do you think that is something that really brings you fulfillment, or can you think of a time?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a bunch of them. One that comes to mind, and I'll say this: I've never been officially Tyson's coach. I've never been his coach officially, but I think there's a mutual respect where if I'm around, he knows I see the game pretty well, and we've had a lot of conversations about it. So I've had the good fortune of being in his corner on some of the championship Sundays, and one of the most recent ones was in Cincinnati at the PPA. He was playing Hunter Johnson. I had commentated that weekend, but I was free then for his match, and so it was myself, and then we were going to teach a camp right after. So the two assistants, in addition to myself, were two guys. One that was his tennis coach when he was 10. And the other was a guy he worked for as a tennis player when he was a young man, 19 or 20. So they're guys who had some Tyson history.
Got it.
They're just, enjoying their time as one of the boys, just cheering him on big time. And, I'm kind of watching in his box. We're watching together, but I would go down during timeouts and just kind of give him what I was seeing. And, Hunter's a great singles player and tough to slow down.
Yeah, I know.
But we realized pretty early on that kind of the one passing shot that he didn't want to hit was the forehand cross court. So we decided to test that. We said, all right, return to the forehand, make sure you're covering line, try to make him beat you cross. Cause usually you have to take a little pace off that one. You have to roll it a little bit more medium pace. And for a tennis player, that's more of a pickleball shot, right? Than just striping the ball. So we got him to miss wide just often enough to slow him down. Tyson did his thing, got hot, and was able to walk away with the gold. And it's a lot tougher, winning titles these days. And so I actually felt like my advice helped a little bit, to be totally honest with you. And then, my buddy won. So that one stood out to me quite a bit.
Cool. So does Tyson not have a coach right now?
So he has a trainer.
Not a coach.
But it's not really, my understanding is there's not a lot of pickleball talk. It's more just like hyping him up, making sure his body's right. And it's somebody he works with regularly at home. Great guy. But I don't think, because he's not a high level pickleball player, I don't think there's a lot of X's and O's that are really happening on the sideline right now.
So why aren't you doing that though? That's my question.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Tyson sees the game well. And like I said, I don't think that... quite honestly, I'm at the point where, my time is becoming a bit more valuable too. So just doing that for free probably wouldn't be the best use of my time. And I don't even know what I'd charge a buddy. Right. So if I'm around, it's something I'd always do, Do
you think it's getting there? Cause tennis, it's the most comparable sport, right? Like, do you think it's we're already seeing it already, people having some coaches on the side. How far out do you think that is? And do you think that's very necessary as the sport evolves to a more professional sport?
I think there's going to be some big time value. And I think what's interesting about it though is the idea of doubles, doubles is the bigger event right now. And so you figure, like, you and I are playing a doubles tournament together. Here's your coach. Here's my coach. What if our coaches don't see it the same way? So you almost need to have locked down doubles teams and have a coach for the team, maybe.
That is
rather
really,
than an individual coach.
Because in singles tennis, they have coaches. Right. But you tell me this, because I don't know. Actually, do people have doubles coaches for tennis? No, right?
I don't
do they?
think so. I don't know either. To be honest, I don't know. I haven't really seen that. I mean, we're just kind of seeing it on the singles side. And I think it totally makes sense on the singles side. And I think it makes sense on the doubles side too. But I would think that would make more sense to be like, okay, Tyson's playing with James this year. They could find a guy or a gal that would coach both of them.
Yeah.
I think that would make more sense on having one unified kind of voice vision than two conflicting strategy. I don't know how that would translate.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Actually, my guess is like singles, you're doing everything. It's so taxing on the body, and it's like you can't see everything. Right. Doubles, at least you have two minds, and you have one person. I think maybe it's not as necessary because you talk about it during break or whatever. What did you see? What did you see? But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still some value to it, and I think that we've seen a little bit of that at MLP.
Yes.
Where they've got their GM or their coach on the sidelines, they're able, and their team on the sidelines, right? So when you have that many educated eyeballs on what's transpiring, sometimes doubles or singles, I think if you're in the heat of battle, you're not always seeing the patterns that aren't working, or you're sometimes not thinking about some potential game plans that might be the right answer for that matchup.
Yeah. So now let's hop into commentating.
Okay.
Because you just got in. So you started that probably when, Kyle? Like a couple of years ago or last year?
I think it was last year, and it was more of just like a volunteer thing. That's when they were getting a lot of pro players to do it, or just anybody that's in the pickleball world. Like, hey, you have somewhat of a name, like give it a shot. And I didn't really know what I was getting into, and it was kind of exciting, but very nerve-wracking for me as more of a shyer personality. I could talk about pickleball all day long with you, but when you know that your voice is going off on the broadcast, it makes you second guess. All right, well, hopefully I know what I'm talking about here. But so I did it a few times, just like on a volunteer basis, basically. And then I was asked by the tennis channel now is kind of handling that for the PPA.
Okay.
Asked to jump on a couple of them early this year, and it was really just a one by one basis. Like I didn't know how many I'd do. I did one. They thought I did well. Asked me for the next one, and so it's always been like ride this out as long as I can, but it might end this very next tournament. So it does look like I'm going to be doing most of them for the rest of the year at least. But
PPAs?
Again, the PPAs.
Got it. Yeah, man. I told you in the very beginning, it's not, there's a short list of coaches, but also especially commentators. You're definitely at the top, man.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
Really good. I think you see the game really well, and you don't over talk or whatever. I think you have a really good balance there. So
thank you. Well, I think that's the toughest thing. And I think like a lot of us pickleball people, 3 years ago, we're listening to the commentary like this is awful. I could do way better.
Yeah.
But it does become a moment like when you get that chance, you're like, oh wow, careful what you wish for, right? But I think what's unique about commentating, and it's tough to find the balance, is there's, unlike a lot of sports, there's very little time between when one point ends to where the next point starts.
I was just gonna get to that, because tennis, it's actually way easier.
I think so.
There's so much. Yeah, you're right. And then you can actually talk about it more and stuff. So what do you see the future of pickleball? And for those of you watching and listening, we're talking about when the point ends, those are put away, whatever. The thing is the proximity, the court's so small. They pick up the ball, then they walk to serve, and then there's not a lot of time there. So do you see like even at MLP, I don't know what they're doing now, or PPA, but are they trying to slow it down somewhat, or you just think like this is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's better that commentators adapt than change the game to help the commentating get better, to be totally honest with you. So I think that, we're always reminded, don't talk over the point, but I take that as a guideline, because if I want to give something relatively insightful, it's, if I don't want to just be a cheerleader out there like, oh, great shot, you want to give something a little bit more. Sometimes your thought will carry over a bit into the next point. But like you said, it's a balance. It can certainly be overdone. Nobody's figured out that balance perfectly yet. So we're all just in that experimental stage, I think, still.
Yeah, no, you're doing a good job, dude.
Well, thank you.
What do you enjoy? So let's talk about this: commentating or coaching? What do you enjoy better?
They're kind of a tie, to be honest. They really are. They're each very challenging for me. In a way, they're each nerve-wracking. I've coached longer, so I think I'm a little more comfortable there. But commentating's, again, it's very challenging to watch with a different lens, right? Because I enjoy pickleball so much that sometimes you just get caught in just enjoying the match. Where when I'm commentating, I'm always looking for something relevant to say. So yes, I'm watching, I'm enjoying it, but I'm watching with a different lens of at any point, Dave or Cameron's going to say, all right, Kyle, what does this team need to do to get back in the match? And you don't want to be like, okay, I don't know, shoot. So you always want to be prepared to be able to tell what's happening with that story. And it's just a fun challenge for me.
No, man, I would actually love to get into that someday.
You've got the voice for it, man. That pleasant, smooth, calm voice.
But no, it just seems fun. And I just like breaking down. I do a lot of breakdowns on our channel too. So it's kind of like that. But what have you learned from being a commentator? And I kind of want to, gauge this question also, like maybe being a better coach, because it's different and you have to see things in real time and say things. Like, is there anything that you've learned being a commentator that you would have not picked up not doing that, you think?
Well, I think just kind of back to my point of, I can watch it just because I enjoy pickleball and I'm just watching it out of enjoyment versus watching it as a commentator or just even as a coach where I'm kind of studying it, right? Because you have to look for patterns, what's really transpiring, what really is the intent for this team and that team. And I think just I'm just a big believer in watching the pro game because it tells you so much about the direction the game's going at all levels. So I think that when you really hyper focus on the pro game, not that everyone has those shots or can play that way, but a lot of the strategies trickle down. And I think that looking for ways to incorporate some of the complexity, some of the direction the game's going, and then try to think of a kind of spoon-fed way of involving that in my camps or some of the drills that we do. Now, you can easily overdo it, especially when you're talking with, 40, 50 people, of a drill getting so complicated or a situation so complicated that it just, it might work in a private lesson, but it just doesn't work in big groups. But I guess that's my passion, is not saying, oh, well, that's too complicated, we won't even talk about this, of finding just little ways to introduce kind of the higher level direction the game's going and introduce that to a 3-0 or a 3-5 without necessarily overwhelming them. So I think that just watching more with that lens of really trying to understand what's happening and then trying to take that into my camps has been a fun challenge.
All right. So talking about the pro game, and I'm glad this is a good segue. We've seen the game change so much. Since you started, let me ask you, like, what are like maybe 2 or 3 of the top things that has totally changed in the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's gotten much more aggressive. Some of that's just the caliber of athlete coming in, can do more, can play a faster up-tempo style and still be under control. Some of that's the paddle technology, with the paddles being more powerful, and especially that grit and that spin component of being able to attack from lower positions. It's funny, even like when I've done some of these videos with Tyson, a lot of those I filmed, roughly 2.5, 3 years ago now. So I'll hear myself talk and I won't heavily disagree with myself, but I'll be like, well, that's not as true as it once was. And I would say transition. I would say mid-court. I think that I was a firm believer that, like, hey, if you're mid-court and you get attacked, like you're too out of position to attack back. You should be blocking. I know a few years ago I thought that you should be blocking like 100% of the time. And now really understanding that you can definitely take some swings in transition, not necessarily to win the point right there, but to kind of change who has the advantage. So I think that being able to take offensive shots from further away, again, it just comes down to intent. If you're trying to swing for a winner, probably not the right idea. But if you're just trying to, again, pressure that volley just enough to have an easier time getting forward on your next ball or to slightly take over the advantage, I think that'd be a big one that I've seen change.
Yeah, no, really good. And by the way, I'm sure Kyle isn't talking about just going crazy and attacking from
No, but it's
so
allowable to do. Yeah.
So what are some guidelines, or what are some things that you coach and teach your students when it comes to attacking from transition?
Well, I think we use the analogy of the red zone, yellow zone, green zone, right? So I think when you're in transition, you don't want to be attacking red zone balls, right? Balls that are at your ankles, that's probably going to be a little ambitious. But if you get a ball, you're balanced, you get a ball kind of between your knees and your waist, and you feel like you see it coming. I think staying low on kind of a swinging volley, trying to just pressure their volley in some ways might get you to neutral or win a higher percentage of the points than simply blocking every time. Because even if you get your block in the kitchen now, if there's too much shape, too much height on it, you take a couple steps forward, but they've got a high ball that they can just pick you apart on. So I just think that high balls are even off the bounce are being punished so much more that it's just not a standard play to just block every time. And sometimes just showing your opponents that you have the ability to take a swing once in a while can throw them off, can surprise them enough to where they're more selective on just freely attacking you over and over again.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, after drilling more with Caden, since I'm, he's around more, he does attack from transition quite often, more than I'm used to. And it does, again, it's about spots for me. Like if you can get in a good spot,
a good location.
Obviously he's not going to attack right here, but man, that pressure that it puts, and I just don't expect many people to attack from transition, but now that puts a lot of pressure on me. I got to get that volley low or whatever. Yeah.
No, when you're expecting a block and then the swing comes, definitely enhances the speed, right? If there's a surprise element, it can be more effective. So again, it's not that you swing every time, but just showing your opponents you're occasionally capable of swinging back can send a message that can pay dividends, throughout the match.
Yeah. I guess I would relate that kind of the same exact thing as it's like when you're in the baseline, like dropping all the time and never hitting a third shot drive. Right. It's like the same thing, right? You want to mix it up.
Yeah, they get in rhythm, they get comfortable. You throw a drive in once in a while just to make them do something different, and it can be effective.
Yeah. So we talked about how the game has changed, from a few years to now. Where and I always like to look to the future, but where do you see the game going? And I'm actually talking about like specifically because we all obviously is going to get more aggressive and stuff like that. But one of the things, because like dinking is a big factor in pickleball, right?
Right.
And I don't think it's ever going to go away.
Right.
But I just like, how good can these athletes get? And like, I mean, what do you think, or what can you say specifically that you think that the game might, or what will it look like? Like that's more different than today that you can. So I
think we're starting to see this a little bit, but I think it's going to kind of be maybe even the standard in coaching. Picturing maybe 10 years from now when the games, I mean, there's a lot of money into it. People are taking it really seriously. Yeah. I think just that idea, and I don't know, maybe I was the first one to bring this up. Maybe I copied someone else, but I think on a podcast, I was chatting with Tyson and I started classifying skills of on the ball or off the ball skills.
Yeah.
Right. Just that idea of, and I kind of recognize this in my own game because I was like, I don't do that bad when good players just feed me every ball because I eventually kind of get in a rhythm and find my way to hold my own.
Yeah.
But I wasn't great in that off the ball role where I was out of rhythm, and all of a sudden I'm being attacked or I'm being dinked to and I'm a little out of rhythm. So I think that idea of training almost maybe even different grips for on the ball or off the ball, because if you think about your opponent being or your partner rather, in a cross-court dinking pattern, right? At the pro level, if they hit the ball to you, more often than not, it's going to be an attack at you than simply just dinking it to you, right? And so I think that you can have different grips when you're anticipating an attack, specifically for counterpunching, that maybe aren't what you use in the rest of your game, just to make you a little tougher to be attacked. And we're seeing certain people do that from time to time. I can see that, if you're thinking about like an academy where you're training pros, of that being a very defined segment of, okay, here's your kind of on the ball game, the regular way you play. And then if you're the person who's off the ball, you're going to be more that counterpuncher, maybe a poacher. Is there a way to modify your grip to be able to do that more effectively when the point gets fast?
Good thoughts there. On the grip, are you talking about like it's kind of scorpion kind of thing?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. I think just rotating over, going more like almost like a Riley Newman type counterpunching grip, just for the sole purpose of that, because I think that you could practice if they do dink it to you. You usually will have enough time to change your grip back to what you're comfortable with when you're on the ball. But when they attack you and you're in that off the ball role, having a grip that's specifically used for counterpunching and to being tougher to attack, I think that people will start using more often. And then the next one that I'm thinking is more like set plays and formations. I think that you look at badminton, you look at kind of an I formation. We see a little bit of it with the shake and bake, but I think that there'd be ways to do that even more, where let's say you're the really fast hands person on my team, and I'm the person who hits a great drive, whether you go to my forehand or my backhand. Rather than have us both start back, why don't we just have you start off the court, off on the side? That way the opponents have to return it to me. I know I'm going to rip a low drive, and then you can come in from the side and look to poach, not coming north and south,
Yeah.
But from the side of the court where your feet maybe aren't as exposed, if I do hit my drive a little bit higher. So I think that we're
kind of like an Ernie position.
Yeah, kind of similar.
We've seen the Waters.
We've seen them tamper with it a little bit, and they did it where one just, I think, crouched down.
Yeah.
When I've tried this, and just rec play and experimented with it, I think that people should try putting the partner off on the side.
Yeah.
And then wait till they know that, the person's hitting their drive, and then kind of come in taking that most aggressive angle they could from the side.
Yeah.
But that way, you're taking away the opponent's ability to return to a particular person. I know when Tyson and Riley played for a long time, it was like, okay, we're always going to return to Riley because we don't want to deal with his poaching ability all the way up. But had they just kept Riley off to the side and said, all right, Tyson,
basically
you just treat it like singles. You can make almost all those balls a forehand for yourself anyways.
Yes.
Just run around, rip forehands, have Riley coming in like a blur from the side and just have to deal with his volleys right away. I think might have been something they could have done.
Yeah.
I think you're going to get to see more creativity. I think teams are going to come in with some set plays, try something new. And I think we're going to realize that there's some new formations and set plays that can actually be effective.
That's cool, man. 2 tennis players you could think of that you would love to see play, or that would dominate the game. You think?
I mean, you got to go with Federer, right? It'd be really fun to see Federer play. I don't know if he would. I don't even know if Federer would dominate the game. I think he'd do very well. And then I think everyone is excited to watch Jack Sock. We've already seen him play a little bit.
Beast, man.
When you really study the game, he's got all the tools, right? He has fast hands, but also very soft hands. Yeah. He's about the right height, but he's not too tall where he's not going to be explosive. So Jack Sock's. I'm really looking to see if he fully dives into pickleball.
Yeah.
Not if, he plays a couple tournaments a year, but if he decides, okay, I'm going to retire from tennis and I want to make a run at being the best pickleball player I can be.
I've heard some rumors, man.
Okay.
I've heard.
I'm curious to see, is he someone that can legitimately challenge Ben Johns for that position? Because I don't think someone's going to be able to unless they have faster hands than Ben.
I'll tell you what, man. Jack Sock would be a guy if he trains at that level, because even at that one bubbly thing, you could kind of see, dude. If he took it seriously, he would be the one.
You think so?
Well, yeah, that would challenge him, right?
Well, no, certainly challenge him.
Now, singles, I don't know. I would have to see him play more singles, but doubles for sure. I can just see. Even he doesn't even get really caught on his dominant forehand wing. This guy is just. I've seen enough to be like, dude, this guy can be.
To me, the hypothetical person that's going to be the player that takes Ben Johns down and is a better player than him, has to have faster hands than him. Not just as fast. They have to definitely, in my opinion, be faster, because I don't think they're going to outdink Ben. I don't think they're going to outthink Ben with his experience and just their understanding of the game. So I think it's going to have to be somebody that's really good in all those areas, but I think they actually need slightly faster hands where they can just fire an attack and say, you know what, if I can just make my attack neutral, I have faster hands. I have the advantage.
Yeah.
We'll see if that happens.
We've already seen that, though. Like someone take a Riley or someone. We've already seen some challenges. Now, the initial attack is the one that really counts. But like we've seen Ben get really tested, like with a Riley or someone.
Yeah, we've seen that being the blueprint that can beat him. Again, I wouldn't necessarily say that means Riley has faster hands. You have to understand when Ben's playing, it's not a 50% versus 50% as far as court coverage. Even when he's being attacked and losing, you could make an argument that the reason is he's covering 75% of the court. So he's having to cover more potential attackable locations than the other people on the other side of the court. So it depends on a lot of factors, but I wouldn't necessarily say that's always a fair fight where Ben loses because he gets attacked and loses most of those exchanges. Well, is the other player on the other side of the court also having to cover that much? With Riley, I think it's very close. Riley is the best matchup for Ben, absolutely. Yeah. Athletically, they do so many things similarly well. And I don't know who has faster hands between Ben and Riley. I think it's probably very close. Yeah. They definitely have a different approach, but I think that Ben has a much bigger edge from the baseline. If he needs to speed up and start driving and closing in off of that, I think that's the biggest edge, in my opinion, that he has over Riley. But all the kitchen line stuff it's really, really close.
Yeah. Dude, I've been saying this for years, but I honestly think, dude, I would love to see the Bryan brothers play.
That's a great, that's
seriously. You're talking about chemistry, lefty and righty, and both one-handed backhand, so they're going to have rolls. That's a team that I would like to see.
Yeah, you're right. And maybe it's that. Maybe we're talking about like an individual being like better. Maybe it's just two guys
I think
that just they have the chemistry. They're both elite, but they know how to play to each other's strengths. And again, we talked about Ben, right now Ben's covering, for lack of a better term, 70%, 75% at times. Maybe it's just two really elite guys that they only have to cover 50-ish.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Sometimes they do 60, sometimes the other one does 60, right? But maybe with, being that much tougher to attack and not having to play that dominant of a role, like a righty-lefty team like the Bryan brothers, maybe that's the team that'll be the top dogs. I think everybody wants to see, I mean, respect to the Johns brothers. I mean, they're so good, but I think everyone wants to see what that new team might look like that can beat them as often as they're losing to them or close to it.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe Matt and Riley, but so far this year, I mean, the Johns brothers have stepped it up.
It's tough, man. It's tough. So yeah, we'll see how that works out. Let's see here. Oh, I did have a question for you, because this is just a thing, and just from coach to coach, and just getting your opinion on this. I've heard this a lot circling around at the non-volley zone line, and we could disagree on this, but I just want to get your feedback. When you're teaching, we're not talking about pros. We're talking about just the average player.
Okay.
Do you teach a continental or Eastern grip?
Yeah, it's a tough call. I actually
you've heard all the all the.
So as a coach, I don't teach one grip.
Okay.
I think that might be different if someone's coming to me and they haven't played before.
Okay.
I teach more self-awareness of what the grip they have is and what the strengths and weaknesses are of that grip.
Okay.
It's just not my preference to come in. Somebody's been playing for a year and a half.
Yeah. They're
excited to get a lesson with me, and I strip their game down and they're going to get way worse before they get better. I mean, sometimes we have to make those changes, but I will say in my own game, I'm even flirting with trying to stay in an Eastern grip a little bit longer. I haven't had enough time to put in the training to really kind of commit it to muscle memory, but I would say I see more value going forward probably in an Eastern grip than a continental grip at the kitchen line. I'm still more of a continental grip myself, and I see kind of the issues with that approach in the modern game.
Well, so you said, obviously if they're coming in with another background, but if you're someone just coming in though, would you teach them continental or Eastern?
I would probably lean towards Eastern now. That's something that I've probably changed in my own teaching. It would depend on their goals, right? Because Eastern might be a little tougher to pull off. But I think if they have a goal of being like, I want to see how good I can get at this game, I'm going to be playing it for several years, and I want to be a pro, or I want to be, a very high level player, I would probably go more for the Eastern grip, really for the purpose of covering the chicken wing area a little bit easier with the forehand. I think that with the continental grip, so many people know that location is a potentially vulnerable space, and it's can be relatively easy to attack it at times. So I think that the Eastern grip, I think you can cover. I teach kind of the 4 volley zones. I think you can cover all those zones maybe a little more efficiently with an Eastern grip if you kind of know how to adjust to each volley.
Yeah, so Eastern grips definitely. I use it all the time.
Right.
Drives. Anything topspin, right? Rolls, dinks, and stuff like that. When I'm at the line, I'm playing continental. I think just for me, and maybe I'll get your feedback here, but like for the majority of the volleys we take, even at like intermediate lower levels, are right around here.
Right.
And when you go in Eastern, it just weakens the volley.
Yep.
So like that's kind of my thought process, because you get so many, and you're talking about this one shot, but like. You need a strong backhand.
And that's, I think, why I kind of changed my answer to it to depend on the goals of the individual. Yeah. I'm seeing how my continental grip can get exposed at the pro level. Yeah. Because, the attack that everyone kind of knows to try is an attack I'm vulnerable for. Yeah. I think that you're right. At maybe a lower level, it weakens the backhand volley because they have to take a kind of a different route. The face is a little more open. There's more strain maybe on different parts of different muscles in the body. But I think we've seen guys figure that out. And then when they have the ability to rotate their hand over kind of right at this right hip and not have to move their shoulders out of the way to cover that, the forehand becomes a much tougher location to attack. So I would say if you have really high long-term goals of being a very, competitive high level player, maybe it's worth that longer route of figuring out the Eastern grip. But you might be right where maybe if your max level that you're probably shooting for is around that 4.0 level, then maybe just staying continental is the better approach.
Okay. Yeah. I like that feedback, man. Because something I've been thinking about.
So, me too, to be totally honest.
And then I see players do both. Like I said, for the viewers out there, Continental's like grip that a lot of people use, but that Eastern is gets that paddle face closed a little bit more on the forehand.
Yep.
So I do use it a lot for topspin shots. I actually switch back and so that's what I do. Really, I'm at the line Continental. When it's slower, when I can read it early, I'll switch to Eastern, and then right after that attack, I can either stay Eastern or switch back to Continental.
And I actually have the same exact approach as you do right now. But again, I feel as though I'm not as good of a counter puncher as I would need to be to really be competitive with like top 10, top 15 players in the world because of that ability to be attacked a little too easy. And so it's made me think, well, how long would it take to get comfortable, trying to hit backhand volleys in more of an Eastern grip? I'm not there yet. I'd want like a month where I can really hammer that home, and I haven't had enough time to really try to add that in, but it's something I've thought about for sure.
Cool, man. Last question on shot. What do you think about the Tomahawk? So Zane, he says, "Oh yeah, everyone's gonna be using this in whatever 5 years or whatever." I disagree with that right now. I just don't. I don't know. Let me get your thoughts.
Okay. I think that's maybe too aggressive of a statement.
Yeah.
Because I get it. He's basically saying, if I've got a ball up here and I have time, by using the Tomahawk, I can actually angle that ball off and end the point much more effectively than hitting like a one-handed roll or even a two-handed swinging volley. So I agree with that thought process. My argument would be there's other elite players, a lot of them, that don't use that, and they're still effectively able to put the ball away. So would everyone need to add that in? I don't think so, but I agree with them that I think we're going to see more people adding that in because as it gets harder to put the ball away, angling it off is going to be an important skill set because it's just you can only hit overhead so big, especially as the level of athlete, can get everything back. So I think more people are going to use it. The fact that it's going to be like a standard shot that everyone has in 5 years, I'm not sure I'm convinced of that.
I haven't seen Ben hit it once. So.
And that's kind of my argument. It seems like people can win without it right now. It's just going to be one of the many tools that some have and some really concentrate on. And some don't have, and I think that'll be okay as well.
Yeah, I like your answer, man. And then last question here. I know we're getting close to the end here, but so where do you see yourself in like 3 to 5 years, Kyle? Like, what do you want to be doing? The sport is just like on this rocket ship, and both of us we've found ourselves here. It's really awesome. We get to do something we really like to do, but where would you like to see yourself? Still coaching, kind of relaxing on an island like Tyson says, or like what do you think?
No, it's a great question. I think I'm okay with not being like long-term as ambitious as a lot of other people as far as like always like needing my name to be bigger and have more notoriety or, I have to be the coach in pickleball. Like that isn't really what makes me happy. Like I've got a great family. I just want to have that balance. And so right now I love coaching. I will never really stop coaching, but I definitely see myself as the type where if I could have more days home, more of that balance, even if it means not making as much money, like I'm perfectly okay with that. For me, it's just all about balance, and I've got a great thing going, and I'd like to maybe do more online coaching. I think that's something that I would get into a little bit more. I think we both realize we enjoy analyzing points, and I think that could be very beneficial to people at all levels of seeing their game and seeing a high-level coach really go over what their patterns are, what their tendencies are. I've done a bit of that on the side. I've never really had a business around it or advertised for it, but I think just with wanting that work-life balance, I'll probably get into more of that, long-term. And then, Tyson and I have talked about coming out with our own certification as well. I'm not exactly sure when that'll happen. I believe it still will, hopefully pretty soon. But I think just that would be fun for me to be more of a creator of curriculum that embraces a little bit more the modern game than maybe some of the existing curriculums.
Cool, man. Really awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
Well, appreciate it, man. No, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for me or what?
Yeah, no, I mean, so I'm curious. So I know a little bit about your background, but I would say the toughest thing for me, I mean, it's been a great ride, but I was very nervous quitting my full-time job to go pickleball full-time. I know that you had something similar.
Very, very
How
tough.
long ago was that? How are you feeling about that? And how do you feel about the choice you made?
Oh, well, yeah, I'd like to hear your answer too.
For
So,
sure.
I talked about this in my couple podcasts.
Okay,
back,
gotcha.
But very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Yeah.
And we'll get to what you did, but I worked at UPS full time.
Okay.
Benefits, pension, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. So and good paying job. And but so we were in California, and I was just I've been actually doing the YouTube thing for like 5+ years on the side. So a lot of several things led us to make the move, but I think one big one was, do I see myself doing this, which at the time UPS, like for the next 20 years,
right?
And and something I saw my dad do, and that's totally fine, and he's actually still there working. We work together. So but and I was looking at my family life, like, how much time can I get with them, and what's it going to look like? So those were two big factors. And it was very, very tough. We analyzed like a lot of stuff. We had enough money to save up, that we saved up to just, okay, if just something bad happens, we'll be okay, but we got to figure something out. So a big decision, it's something I like to do. Obviously, pickleball, I love it, and the big one too had other factors, and moving out of California, and also starting something that I love to do, and really getting the more family time.
Yeah. No, it's a big factor for me as well.
So like it would, dude. So the answer was like so tough. Looking back now, it's the best decision I've ever made. One of the best decisions I've ever made. There's a few. But like, yeah, man. So it was very, very tough. But I mean, as you see, I just showed you the court in the backyard. It just couldn't be better. I'm coaching. I'm doing the YouTube thing full time now. I get to help a lot of people with their game, and that's what brings me. As this life can go by really, really quickly. But then when I stop, and people thank me for helping them, or like whatever. It just is really cool that I get to do something that I actually like.
Yeah, no.
And still be at home. So like right now, I'm not doing the traveling thing. I did do a bit of that last year, but we've kind of changed some things in our business. Like right now, we're doing these 2-day intensives where people fly here. And
excellent.
And so it's been good, man. It's been good.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I mean, very similar. You have 3 kids. I have 4 kids. My wife didn't work outside the home, so that idea of making that jump to kind of chase this dream, a part of me felt very guilty for even considering it with where I was at in life. And we see all these people going pro in pickleball, but most of them in their 20s, and they're single. And I think it's an easier decision at that age to just bet on yourself, whereas when you do it later in life, when you have a family, it's not just betting on yourself. Like you've got other things that you're risking. So, I wanted to make the jump probably a year earlier than I did.
And when was it?
When I was probably like 2019 or 2020 when I went full time. I spent a year where I was in sales, and it's funny, my exact sales job before pickleball was I worked at a cemetery. So that actually
wait, so sales for what? For caskets?
Well, I had to like wear a lot of hats. So I would sell like the plots or the space where they would get buried. I would make conversation, have to make calls to say, okay, well, we've got these 2 spots or this section next to your family.
Dude, that's
do you want to lock that up?
That's so random. Dude.
It was totally nothing like what I'd ever done. I mean, I'd done other sales. This was very unique. Man. But honestly, I kind of credit that to the decision, because I was helping families, prepare, funerals for sometimes people younger than me. And so it made me realize life is short. You just never know.
Wow.
And so like you sometimes, without having everything set in stone, sometimes you just have to bet on yourself. And at the same kind of thinking of, is this what I want to do for the next 30 years?
Yeah.
I didn't hate the job, but it was by no means something I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And am I going to be a better husband and a better father if I'm constantly doing something that I'm not passionate about? So I decided, let's just go for it. But again, I did it for about a year where I was teaching camps for Level Up while I was balancing my other full-time job. And so it gave me just enough time to kind of view the landscape and say, I think pickleball is about to really take off. Yeah. If I get in early, I like my chances. But I was hustling for lessons right out of the gate. And very fortunate to be where I'm at now, a few years later. But all about timing, I guess.
Yeah. Dude, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
a lot of similarities,
man.
A lot of mutual respect. So thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah. Did you learn anything from the sales of of your job that correlates?
Yeah. I mean, so like I said, I'm shy. I'm more of an introvert, but I told you I was somewhat comfortable with public speaking. It's because, you study kind of what people take in when you talk, and you're learning that it's not always just what you say, like it's how you say it. And so to deliver a message confidently, to be able to project, to be able, I'm always somewhat calculated in what I say, but just that idea of, act as if, right? Act as if. And if you can kind of act the part, people will see you as an authority figure. But even if you have the most knowledge in the room, if you deliver the message like a mouse, nobody's going to give you credit for it. So I think just learning that through sales really helped me in kind of dealing with bigger groups in lessons. And that's predominantly what I do now.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, Kyle, again, appreciate the time, dude. It was good to get to know you. And yeah, man, I would like to, maybe we hang out sometime, play a little pickleball. And where are you, Washington?
Yeah. So I'm back in my small hometown of Sequim, Washington.
How far is that from the court, like the main, the court that got invented or whatever?
Only an hour. Yeah.
Okay.
We're only an hour from Bainbridge Island, where it was, where it originated. I've been to the original courts. It's a pretty cool experience. They still have it there. They leave some paddles there. Yeah. So if you're traveling through Bainbridge,
dude, I plan to do a little
there. Yeah.
Little documentary or something.
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah. We took some photos, went there a couple years back, but it's a cool experience. If you're a pickleball junkie, you should definitely look to do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Kyle, thanks again, man. Appreciate your time. Enjoyed your story. How can people find you, or what do you have going on?
Yeah. So if you want to take a camp, just go to TysonMcGuffin.com. The whole schedule is listed there. They'll tell you if I'm leading it or if Tyson's leading it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be doing the next 2 PPAs, but I believe I'm signed on for the rest of them throughout the year. So you'll hear my voice if you tune into the stream for PPA. And you can follow me on Instagram at KyleMcKenzie.pb.
Okay. You guys heard it there. Thanks again, Kyle. This was a great episode. And hope to have you back here.
Yeah, would love to, man. Yeah, anytime.
Next time you're in AZ.
Which a few times a year. So I'm always cycling through. We'll have to do it again.
Okay. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.